I didn't have friends for the first 22 years of my life, and it was because of severe social anxiety. The first thing that I did to start overcoming this, it was not actually going out and talking to people, making friends, going to social events. It wasn't any of that. The very first thing I had to start with was just overcoming my fear of vulnerability. Growing up, I never opened up about this. I was always afraid of people finding out that I didn't have friends, that I didn't have a social life. And my parents kind of knew this, and they would try to help me out, like suggesting to invite people over to the house, but I was just scared of doing that. And I felt embarrassed that they would have to help me, make friends and socialize. And I just pushed away those opportunities. So people never really invited me to hang out, and I was too scared to invite people to hang out. I was also afraid of people like looking at my phone, seeing that I wasn't texting other people. I didn't have many contacts on my phone. I was afraid of them finding out what I do outside of school. Like people always say, what are you doing this weekend? What are you doing for spring break? And instead of going out and hanging out with other people, I was just playing video games, watching TV, and just staying at home by myself. I ended up dragging this weight with me for 22 years. And I was trying to make friends when I was 22 years old. Like I was trying to invite people to hang out, and I was starting to have some luck, but I could never get close to people because I knew if I let them get too close that they would figure out that I actually didn't have a social life. All of this was like building up to a point. I was 22 years old. I was a senior in college. I was working a job that I hated, and I still struggled to connect with people and form solid friendships. I was pushing myself to go to social events, go talk to people, but I still felt incredibly insecure about myself, and I felt like I had missed my opportunity growing up of building social skills, building a social life, and getting confident around other people. And because I'm about to graduate college, I'm about to lose that entire network to build social skills. So I felt like it was either now or never, because if I graduate, go into the workforce, and I still don't know how to make friends or be a normal human being, then I'm just going to be alone for the rest of my life. I'm not going to have a girlfriend. I'm not going to get married. And that idea is terrifying. So if you are new to the channel, my name is Matthew. I'm 29 years old, and I overcame severe social anxiety. And this entire channel is just about me sharing my personal journey, things that I learned, and sharing that with other people who are struggling. So if this sounds like you and you resonate with what I'm sharing right now, then subscribe, because every week I'm sharing specific steps that I did to overcome this. I knew that I probably needed to try therapy. People with social anxiety, they always recommend like cognitive behavioral therapy, but I was too scared to do it up until this point. And interestingly enough, the fear of never trying and finding out, that was even worse than trying and dealing with the embarrassment. I finally just realized that I needed to tell somebody that I was struggling, and so I talked to my mom about it. I sat there for 2 hours because I was so nervous and how I should phrase it, and I was just sweating bullets the entire time. When I finally told her, I said, "Hey Mom, I think I need to go to therapy." She said, "What do you mean? Like, why do you need to go to therapy?" And I said, "Well, because I get very anxious when I'm talking to people." And she said, "What do you mean? Like, I don't understand." And I said, "Well, when I was talking to those people the other day, we were at church, I was incredibly anxious the entire time." And she didn't really understand what I meant. She said, "Well, that's kind of strange, but I mean, most people get a little bit anxious, right?" But she didn't really understand how severe it was. And luckily she still said, "Okay, well, I'll help you get like a therapy appointment." And the day of the appointment, I drive up, I walk into the office, and immediately I felt incredibly self-conscious, because I'm thinking everybody's probably looking at me and thinking, "I wonder what's wrong with this guy. He just showed up to therapy. There must be something wrong with him." And I I was just, at that point, I was so frustrated that I didn't care. I sat down. They took me to my therapy room. I sat down with the lady, and she simply says, all right, tell me what's going on. And keep this in mind, I'm 22 years old, and I've never told anybody about my 22 years of not having a social life, loneliness, and just mentally suffering for so long. And now I'm having to talk about it all at once. And so what happened was, I didn't even know where to start. I start talking and say, well, I've grown up with really bad social anxiety all my life. I couldn't make friends when I was in junior high school, and now I'm in college, and I'm still struggling with this, and I'm just terrified that I'm going to end up alone. And within 15 seconds, I just break down and I start crying. And I'm just like sobbing, choking, and trying to get through my story. It felt so good though. Like, I've never done that. I've never really cried in front of somebody before and was vulnerable like that. I kept sharing the rest of my story. Just, it probably wasn't very useful, but she kept saying, thank you so much for telling me, but we're going to figure this out. Like, you're going to be okay. And when I left that session, like, I felt amazing. I felt so good because for once in my life, I was not letting the social anxiety and the fear dictate my decisions. I was finally doing something about it, and I felt like I was finally making progress on it. And at that point, I stopped being so self-conscious and embarrassed about my social anxiety and about not having a social life, because now I could finally tell people that, yeah, I have social anxiety. I don't have many friends, but I'm working on it. After that first therapy session, I kept going for every week, and I started talking to more people about my social anxiety. I opened up to my brother, my sister, one of my close friends, a few other people who I had known from high school that I had started to hang out with. I started talking about this with them, and it felt so good. Like, I had this confidence now behind it, because it was no longer this thing that I was self-conscious about. In a way, I was actually proud that I was taking the initiative and being brave and trying to fix myself. Some advice that I want to give some of you people out there that are struggling with social anxiety: they think that they don't need therapy. Well, my question for you is, are you scared to go to therapy? Because if you are scared to go to therapy, that means you absolutely need to go to therapy. Because if you're trying to make friends and you are not comfortable with yourself, you're not comfortable with being vulnerable, then you're not gonna be able to get really close to people. Because what forms strong friendships and relationships is not the surface level small talk stuff. It's not hanging out all the time. It's sharing your vulnerabilities, things that you struggle with, your imperfections, and being comfortable letting other people into your life. That is where you develop your deeper friendships. If you are scared to go to therapy, there's no easy way around it. You kind of just have to rip the Band-Aid off. The very first time you share something vulnerable, that is the hardest time. But after that, it does get easier. So for therapy, go to a therapist that specializes in social anxiety and CBT therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. They're going to be the best fit to help you if you have social anxiety. And typically, most people who have social anxiety, they also have some depression, which is what I had. If you want more information on what helped me, then you can find all of it in my free social anxiety starter guide. And in that guide, it's going to show you where I went from with having social anxiety, having no social life, no dating life, to where I am now. If you enjoyed the video and you resonated with something, then comment that down below. And if you want to see next week's video, then subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.